Episode 5 of The Penguin was another banger. A little bit of plot armor though. Not a huge fan of that during sort of the key action scene of the episode. But overall, I still really like where things are headed. It seems like for the last 2 episodes, our final conflict is completely set up now. And the rest of it should just be a duel, is what it feels like. I would expect next episode we'll get kind of our second act low point. And we'll see how the Penguin weasels out of it. Because at this point, presumably they're going to want him for the Batman 2, if that ever gets made. So we start off and get a little moment where Penguin burns his car. A nice symbolism there that he's willing to essentially give up everything for power and respect. Not super surprising, but a good little start to the episode. So now that he's kind of at open war with the Maronis, we start off right away with one of his henchmen being like, hey, the Maronis' son is a social media guy. And Oz is immediately like, okay, let's go fucking get him. It's time to get a hostage and get our mushrooms back. Very in character for Oz, and kind of weird that you're still rooting for him, even though he's a piece of shit. I think the show's done a really good job of framing him as the underdog, which makes him a little bit more easy to root for, even though no one's a super good person. So this episode gets right into it. Immediately, he's back at the prison. He's like, hey, I got your fucking son. Let's meet. Just me, you, and your son. Give me my fucking shrooms. Obviously, you know it's not going to play out like this because it's TV, and it never does. And this is kind of where the plot armor comes in from Oz's side to me. This episode felt fast, wasted no time getting to the action, which was nice. And Oz, in typical Penguin sneaky fashion, tells the guard, hey, make sure he gets what he deserves, as he leaves the prison and slips him some money. So obviously he's going to have the head Maroni killed while he's getting his shrooms and intending on killing both the son and wife. Fucking ruthless. And we cut to the breaking news. They're talking about the Falcones being all dead. And I really like this conversation between Sophia and this cop. And this conversation is really amusing because Sophia is giving her kind of bullshit story and he's listening, but he knows it's bullshit. So they both know that she's fucking lying, but it doesn't really matter. Kind of is what it is because of how much influence they have. And again, Sophia's actress killing it here where she's feigning upset that her whole family's dead. Obviously, we know she doesn't give a shit. And then he says it's suspicious. And then she just flips. Not crazy, just serious. And she's like, do you want me to answer that? Are you trying to sell photos of my dead family because you lost all those kickbacks? Very obvious they both know what's going on. And it's just kind of posturing and keeping up formalities and presentation. Not a super action-packed scene, but I really like the way it was done. Where the dialogue isn't overly explicit, but we all understand what's going on in the dynamic here. So she goes and talks to Vidi, who she's stashed away. And she's like, look, I need cash. My dad would have had some. You're going to tell me where. And he's trying to hold out. So she's pouring cold water on him and essentially just keeping him down in this cellar to freeze his ass off. And he's obviously chained up. Pretty simple, but efficient, I imagine. Even though we don't get much time between Oz and Eve, I do like the portrayal of the kind of toxic relationship they have where he just keeps making promises, sort of delusions of grandeur. And she keeps being like, no, we have to leave. We're really in danger now. But then she buys into his promises anyway because she's just kind of latching onto that little bit of hope for a better life. Because we've seen this exact type of scene 2 or 3 times now at this point. So it's clearly like how their relationship functions, and it's obviously not healthy. But I do think it's realistic. And then Vic is disappointed because he wanted to be there. But Oz is taking just a couple of the henchmen. He's like, I need you to watch my mom. She's the most important thing to me. Another good example of a weird, pretty unhealthy relationship that's consistent throughout the whole show. And also, again, I think pretty realistic. Sophia's just trying to wait Vidi out in this mausoleum, kind of threatening him, kind of just being a bitch. So he starts needling her back and essentially blaming her for her mother's death and saying that her mom was going to leave Carmine and go to him and all this shit. But she just kept going back and she blames them. I do like this little demonstration of his willingness to be a total asshole, even in this situation where she's got him dead to rights and just torturing him, even though he's been kind of a scumbag all season. So he explains to her that if she tries to take power by herself, no one's going to respect her. And this has kind of been implied throughout the whole season, or directly stated by her sometimes, that a woman has never run their family. And here he's kind of heavily leaning into that and kind of on her guilt too, saying that he couldn't help her mom, but he can help her. And even though I just said he had some courage for standing up to her, I think this also shows that he's pretty slimy, that he was willing to keep working for her dad after the mom got killed. Obviously, he helped with Sophia getting thrown in Arkham, and now he's willing to work for her, even though he's been shitting on her all season. So when push comes to shove, he really is just kind of chicken shit. And we get another scene with Oz's mom where you can see how fast she's progressing. She doesn't really seem to recognize Victor when he comes in and thinks he's Oz or one of her kids until he says it. And then once it clicks, she was being very nice and grandmotherly, and she goes straight back to being kind of ruthless and a bitch. And the thing that she's proud of is that Oz is trying to move up and take more power for himself. And we've seen this dynamic the whole season, and it really just reinforces Oz's motivations and backgrounds every time. And I do think it's interesting how when she's kind of having a dementia moment, she's much more nice and gentle. And then when things click into place for her, she goes back to being rough and how she is. And she keeps saying that Oz is going to need her and she wants to get ready to help him and that sort of thing. Another character kind of inflating their own sense of worth. We get a quick little cut here of the guard stabbing Maroni. And the guard says, "This is from Oz, motherfucker." So when Maroni lives, he knows who is behind it. Kind of stupid, but sending a message, I guess. And this is where I said the plot armor comes in. A bunch of people pop out for the Maronis. But one aspect of this scene that I really do like is we see that the kid is drenched and we don't know why or in what. And we figure out in just a second that it's gasoline and all this was deliberate. So that's something that I really liked about the scene that I thought was pretty clever and just kind of a fitting end where he's going to get burned alive along with Nadia. So a really good scene overall. It would have just been nice if Oz had also brought a couple people with him. So it wasn't just 2 on like 8 and neither one of them get hit at all. But I like the gasoline touch and just overall how vicious the scene is and how brutal he's willing to be to get what he wants. In typical Oz fashion, he was more clever, but because he wanted to kind of get this sadistic kill, they set off the smoke alarms, which obviously set off the faucets and the anti-fire system. And they set this up back when Sophia showed him the mushrooms early on, that these mushrooms were super temperature sensitive and condition sensitive. So by the time they get out of there and get back to their place, almost all of them are dead, which is a huge loss for him, especially after all that got exposed regarding his true feelings towards Sophia, the Maronis. We know that Clancy Brown, the head Maroni, is still alive. So now he kind of did all this, put himself out there, and fucked himself. And this sort of vicious streak has been haunting him literally since the first scene of the season. Like I just said, right at this time, he gets the call from Maroni that he's still alive. And Maroni says, "You're cooked." And Oz is like, "Huh, that's funny. Call your wife." And kind of like, "Fuck you." Nice little dialogue there, because it all works pretty naturally. So the doctor shows up again, and he kind of seems like a Jorah Mormont type character to me, if you've seen Game of Thrones. Just sort of a simp for a much younger woman, or a woman that they didn't really have an appropriate relationship with. And I can't tell if there was more to him, if he's trying to get in and betray her, because she keeps being betrayed by everybody, and he just kind of seems like a simp bitch. But I'm wondering if he has some way to just trigger her whenever he feels like, or what exactly his deal is. Or maybe he's just a simp. It seems like that's what he is right now, because he's saying he wants to work for her if she'll have him, and he didn't tell the police anything, and it seems like he's fully committed. So I guess we'll see. I wouldn't be particularly surprised either way. Not a fan of his character though. And also he still looks like if Sal Vulcano lost like 100 pounds. So they have a family meeting set up and Vitti tells everyone to shut the fuck up so that she can talk. And this is where she kind of has her taking over the gang officially moment. So literally in her little speech, the first thing she says is, "I killed the family and I'm glad that I did." She goes into this tirade about how her mom was a force and the Falcones couldn't handle her, so they killed her and then disposed of her. Kind of verging on like girl boss dialogue there. I hate that shit where it's like vaguely she was a force. It's like when some girl says that you couldn't handle her. It's like, okay then, psycho. Anyway, she says that they're a new family and that she's not going to treat them all like pawns because none of them were made men, none of them were higher ups. And she's going to end the war with the Maronis. Vitti's trying to kind of talk her down and appeal to the rest of the group. And she just blows his fucking brains out on the table. I do like that part of the scene a lot, especially because then she dumps a bag of cash in front of him and you can see him pulling the money away with his blood on it. Just nice little stuff like that really reflects the culture of the family and just where their values really are. So Penguin tells Victor after that call from Maroni, "Take mom somewhere and hide her, and you pick." So he picked Crown Point, which is where he's from. It's been referenced a few times throughout the season. That's where he lived with his family in kind of this ghetto apartment that got flooded by the Riddler. And we do see he's like ducking some guy that he recognizes as he's taking the mother in there. He goes to talk to Eve, and she's like, "You can go to Crown Point without me." And he has a freak out, and he's throwing shit. And she's like, "Look, I know you'll be on top soon, but I'll just hold you back. So let's just kind of pause after he has a freak out. Again, I think a really good demonstration of just a super unhealthy relationship where they're always fighting and making up. And I like the idea of him having a weak spot for women, given how he looks and presumably the treatment that he would have gotten from them his whole life. The idea that he kind of lets her talk her way out of shit the way that he does everyone else, I find to be an interesting dynamic. Sophia finds Sal Maroni because she says that her dad always said he was really sentimental. And I guess this place had some value for him. And she proposes an alliance of the Gigantes and Maronis. And because they both hate Oz, looks like he's in trouble now. Because obviously his whole plan was to have them wipe each other out and him kind of just fill the vacuum in. So Oz goes and finds his mom. He apologizes. And he's like, I feel like I let you down. And she's like, yeah, you did. Again, just reinforcing all the super unhealthy dynamics in this show between the people. But it at least makes you understand why they all are the way that they are. While you also understand that they're not good people. And it doesn't really function as an excuse. And she goes off accusing him of bringing her back here for spite and trying to kill her and saying what kind of real man can't take care of his own mom. All the stuff that you'd expect from the exact type of parent that would turn someone into a power-hungry, ruthless asshole like he is now. Always really good character work when these two are in a scene together. And then Vic, who was asleep, wakes up and starts apologizing. And Oz is like, oh, don't worry about it. You did good. It was a smart move. And I really like that little contrast they show where you can see how upset he is when his mom berates him. So then he turns around and praises Vic just so he's not like his mom in that regard. Just a little thing, but really nice. So Oz finds a coin when he's looking around the apartment about the underground trolleys that don't run anymore. And he's like, Vic, come on. And underground, it's humid and damp and dark, which is good for the mushrooms. And then obviously you have the whole him kind of running the dredges of society that people see no value in, but he does, obviously like himself. And then just the logistics of it where they can get anywhere through these tunnels. And that's the end of the episode. So like I said, another really good episode. I can't wait to see how it ends and just the next 3 episodes in general. Been a super fun show so far, and I expect things to escalate quite a bit in the next couple in particular. But I'm going to leave it here for this one. If you've seen the episode, let me know what you think. If you haven't watched the show at all, give it a shot. Even if you don't want to pay for HBO, you can borrow a family member's account or, find it elsewhere. But yeah, I try to respond to all the comments that aren't just insults. Like and subscribe and all that shit. Thanks. See ya.